Esther 9 Good News Translation Bible Text and Audio. 1. The 13th day of Adar came, the day on which the royal proclamation was to take effect, the day when the enemies of the Jews were hoping to get them in their power. But instead, the Jews triumphed over them. 2. In the Jewish quarter of every city in the empire, the Jews organized to attack anyone who tried to harm them. People everywhere were afraid of them, and no one could stand against them. 3. In fact, all the provincial officials, governors, administrators, and royal representatives helped the Jews because they were all afraid of Mordecai. For it was well known throughout the empire that Mordecai was now a powerful man in the palace and was growing more powerful. 5. So the Jews could do what they wanted with their enemies. They attacked them with swords and slaughtered them. 6. In Susa, the capital city itself, the Jews killed 500 people. 7. Among them were the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, Parshandatha, Dalpon, Spatha, Poratha, Adelia, Ardatha, Parmesha, Arsai, Aradai, and Vezatha. However, there was no looting. 8, 9, 10, 11. That same day the number of people killed in Susa was reported to the king. 12. He then said to Queen Esther, in Susa alone the Jews have killed 500 people, including Haman's 10 sons. What must they have done out in the provinces? What do you want now? You shall have it. Tell me what else you want, and you shall have it. 13. Esther answered, if it please your majesty, let the Jews in Susa do again tomorrow what they were allowed to do today, and have the bodies of Haman's 10 sons hung from the gallows. 14. The king ordered this to be done, and the proclamation was issued in Susa. The bodies of Haman's 10 sons were publicly displayed. 15. On the 14th day of Adar, the Jews of Susa got together again and killed 300 more people in the city. But again, they did no looting. 16. The Jews in the provinces also organized and defended themselves. They rid themselves of their enemies by killing 75,000 people who hated them, but they did no looting. 17. This was on the 13th day of Adar. On the next day, the 14th, there was no more killing, and they made it a joyful day of feasting. 18. The Jews of Susa, however, made the 15th a holiday, since they had slaughtered their enemies on the 13th and 14th and then stopped on the 15th. 19. This is why Jews who live in small towns observe the 14th day of the month of Adar as a joyous holiday, a time for feasting and giving gifts of food to one another. 20. Mordecai had these events written down and sent letters to all the Jews, near and far, throughout the Persian Empire. 21. Telling them to observe the 14th and 15th days of Adar as holidays every year. 22. These were the days on which the Jews had rid themselves of their enemies. This was a month that had been turned from a time of grief and despair into a time of joy and happiness. They were told to observe these days with feasts and parties, giving gifts of food to one another and to the poor. 23. So the Jews followed Mordecai's instructions, and the celebration became an annual custom. 24. Haman, son of Hammedatha, the descendant of Agag and the enemy of the Jewish people, had cast lots Purim. They were called to determine the day for destroying the Jews. He had planned to wipe them out. 25. But Esther went to the king, and the king issued written orders with the result that Haman suffered the fate he had planned for the Jews. He and his sons were hanged from the gallows. 26. That is why the holidays are called Purim, because of Mordecai's letter and because of all that had happened to them. 27. The Jews made it a rule for themselves, their descendants, and anyone who might become a Jew, that at the proper time each year these 2 days would be regularly observed according to Mordecai's instructions. 28. It was resolved that every Jewish family of every future generation in every province and every city should remember and observe the days of Purim for all time to come. 29. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai, also wrote a letter, putting her full authority behind the letter about Purim, which Mordecai had written earlier. 30. The letter was addressed to all the Jews, and copies were sent to all the 127 provinces of the Persian Empire. It wished the Jews peace and security. 31. And directed them and their descendants to observe the days of Purim at the proper time, just as they had adopted rules for the observance of fasts and times of mourning. This was commanded by both Mordecai and Queen Esther. 32. Esther's command, confirming the rules for Purim, was written down on a scroll.